There is a strange moment that happens in every room. A loud man is speaking. He is explaining, defending, adding, proving, filling every gap with sound. And then there is another man who says almost nothing. He is not shy. He is not confused. He is not trying to disappear. He is simply not leaking himself into the room. And if you watch carefully, you will notice something unsettling. People often remember the second man more. Not because silence is magic, not because mystery is a performance, but because restraint has weight. In a world where almost everyone is trying to be noticed, the man who does not chase attention begins to look like he possesses something rarer than charisma. He looks like he possesses himself. Most people think respect is won through presence, and they confuse presence with volume. They believe the more they explain, the more they will be understood. The more they react, the more they will be taken seriously. The more they announce their standards, their pain, their opinions, their boundaries, the more solid they will appear. But the opposite is usually true. The more a man needs to be constantly heard, the more others begin to sense that he is negotiating with his own insecurity in public. His speech may be strong, his tone may be polished, his arguments may even be correct, but something in him still looks unsettled. He is not speaking from ground, he is speaking from hunger, and hunger has a sound. The Stoics understood this long before social media, before podcasts, before group chats, before everyone became their own public relations department. They saw that a person who cannot govern his tongue usually cannot govern his inner life. Not because silence is moral by itself, but because speech is where impulse becomes visible. Words reveal the temperature of the soul. That is why the unshakable man speaks less. Not to seem deep, not to play games, not to dominate through absence. He speaks less because he does not need every feeling to become a statement. He does not need every irritation to become a verdict. He does not need every misunderstanding to become a trial. He has learned a difficult truth. What leaves your mouth begins to rule you. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not to an audience. That matters. In Meditations, the most powerful man in the world was not practicing performance. He was practicing self-correction. Again and again, he brought his attention back to one hard discipline. Do not be thrown around by the noise outside you. Do not become theatrical in your own mind. Do not let praise inflate you or insult reduce you. That kind of man will naturally speak differently. He will not rush to comment on everything. He will not volunteer his ego into every conversation. He will not confuse being consulted with being important. And he will not spend half his life explaining himself to people who were never trying to understand him in the first place. This is where many people misunderstand Stoicism. They think speaking less means becoming cold, detached, emotionally unavailable, almost mechanical. But real Stoicism is not emotional paralysis. It is emotional government. It is not the refusal to feel. It is the refusal to be dragged. That distinction changes everything. A man who speaks less is not necessarily wiser. Sometimes he is just afraid. Sometimes he is passive. Sometimes he is withdrawn because life beats something out of him. Silence, by itself, proves nothing. The point is not silence. The point is mastery. The unshakable man is able to speak, and speak clearly, when it is time. He can confront, he can confess, he can lead. He can say no without trembling, and yes without posturing. But he is not compelled by the inner itch that makes weaker men over-explain, overreact, and overexpose themselves. He has discovered that not every thought deserves a witness, and that alone separates him from most people. Think about how many conflicts begin not with action, but with unnecessary speech, a sarcastic line that should have been swallowed, a defensive explanation that turned a small misunderstanding into a courtroom. A late-night message sent from bruised pride. A meeting ruined because one man could not let another man be wrong quietly. A relationship exhausted by constant clarification, constant emotional reporting, constant insistence on being validated in real time. So much damage is done by people who feel before they observe and speak before they understand. Seneca, in On Anger, treated anger almost like a temporary form of madness. He was not denying that injustice exists. He was not asking people to become harmless. He was pointing to something painfully recognizable. Once emotion captures the tongue, judgment begins to rot. The angry person believes he is expressing strength, but he is usually revealing dependence. He is showing that another person's behavior now has direct access to his nervous system. That is not power. That is possession. A man who cannot delay speech cannot delay reaction, and a man who cannot delay reaction is easy to manipulate. This is one of the reasons quiet men are often misread. People project onto restraint. They call it confidence, arrogance, mystery, calmness, distance, wisdom, intimidation. But what they are really noticing is not silence itself. They are noticing a lack of urgency. The man is not rushing to control how he is perceived. He is not managing every impression in real time. He is not sprinting after approval. And because he is not chasing, he seems anchored. Respect often begins there, not in dominance, in non-neediness. One of the least discussed forms of weakness is the need to constantly narrate yourself, to explain why you did what you did, to make sure everyone knows your intentions were pure, to protect your image, sentence by sentence, to correct every false assumption, to leave no ambiguity anywhere. At first, this can look like honesty. Sometimes it even disguises itself as transparency, but very often it is fear. It is the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of losing status, the fear of not being seen as good, smart, strong, fair, talented, moral, or indispensable. So a man talks and talks and talks, not because the truth requires it, but because his ego does. The unshakable man understands something that takes years to accept. Being misunderstood is part of adult life. Sometimes you clarify. Sometimes you correct the record. But sometimes you simply let reality outlive the rumor. You let your conduct do the slow work that your mouth was desperate to do in one afternoon. That is a brutal discipline, especially now, because modern life trains us in the opposite direction. Comment immediately, respond instantly, state your position before you have even examined it. Build an identity in public. Let the algorithm reward outrage, speed, certainty, visibility. Say something sharp, say something memorable, say something now. Under those conditions, speaking less is not just a social choice. It becomes a form of inner resistance. You are refusing to turn your consciousness into a live broadcast. Epictetus kept returning to a distinction that still cuts straight through modern chaos. Some things are yours, and some are not. Your judgment is yours, your choices are yours, your response is yours. Another person's opinion, another person's mood, another person's gossip, another person's distorted interpretation of you, none of that belongs to you. But notice what most people do. They try to reclaim through speech what was never theirs to control. They argue with perception, they chase closure, they try to force understanding, they exhaust themselves, trying to manage minds they cannot enter. The unshakable man steps back from this trap. He asks a harder question. What in me is so unstable that I need immediate agreement? What wound gets touched when someone doubts me? Why do I feel erased if I am not constantly asserting myself? That is where the real work begins. Not in sounding wise, in becoming harder to provoke. And this matters deeply in relationships. A lot of men think respect in relationships comes from making strong declarations. Announce your boundaries, state your standards, deliver your speech, make your position clear. Sometimes that is necessary, but often the stronger move is quieter. It is refusing to bargain with disrespect through endless words. It is withdrawing from circular conflict. It is not taking the bait when someone wants a reaction more than a resolution. There is a kind of dignity in not joining every emotional fire. That does not mean avoidance, it means timing. Say what needs to be said after your ego has stopped shaking. Speak once you can tell the truth without trying to punish. Speak when the goal is clarity, not victory. Speak when your words are clean enough that you can stand by them tomorrow. Most people never learn this. They either explode or disappear. They call one strength and the other peace, but both can be forms of cowardice. Real steadiness is harder. Real steadiness stays present without becoming chaotic. This is why speaking less has so much to do with self-respect. A man with low self-respect usually swings between two extremes. He says too much because he wants to secure his place, or he says too little because he is afraid to take one. In both cases, his speech is ruled by fear. He is either pushing himself onto the world or withholding himself from it. The unshakable man does neither. He does not beg for room, and he does not vanish from it. He knows that words are tools, not a substitute for substance, so he uses them deliberately. A sentence to set a boundary, a question to expose confusion, a calm refusal, a measured correction, a direct admission, nothing inflated, nothing sloppy, nothing spilled, just because emotion demanded movement. There is something almost physical about this kind of restraint. You can feel when a man has it. He does not rush to fill silence because silence does not accuse him. He can let a pause breathe. He can hear something provocative without lunging at it. He can sit with an unfinished impression long enough to see whether it deserves speech at all. That ability creates a different kind of authority. Not the authority of status, the authority of weight. At work, this is obvious if you know how to look. The least secure person in the room is often not the quietest one. It is often the one who cannot stop signaling competence. The one who interrupts to display certainty. The one who answers questions that were not asked. The one who speaks in order to be seen thinking. Meanwhile, the steady person listens long enough to understand the real problem. When he finally speaks, he does not merely add noise, he changes the direction of the room. A useful sentence at the right moment is worth more than 15 anxious ones, and people know it. They may not say it out loud, but they know whose words cost something. That is another secret here. Respect is tied to scarcity, not fake scarcity, not manipulative silence, real selectiveness. If a man comments on everything, his speech loses contour. If he reacts to every provocation, his reactions become ordinary. If every emotion becomes external, none of his words feel chosen. But when a man is measured, his speech carries consequence. People lean in. Not because he is performing mystery, but because his words are filtered through judgment. He is not handing out access to every passing state inside him. He has standards for what becomes language. That is a form of discipline our age barely teaches. We teach expression before examination, disclosure before digestion, opinion before understanding. And then we wonder why people feel fragmented, why relationships are fragile, why public discourse is hysterical, why inner life feels crowded and weak. A man becomes harder to shake when he stops collaborating with his own fragmentation. And one practical way to begin is simple: delay expression. Not forever, just long enough to find out whether the thing you wanted to say was true, useful, and worthy of the consequences. Delay the angry reply. Delay the defensive explanation. Delay the urge to correct every slight. Delay the need to prove you were right. Delay the impulse to announce your transformation before you have lived it. In that delay, something important happens. You meet yourself before the performance starts. You start hearing the machinery underneath your speech, the fear of looking weak, the ache to be affirmed, the vanity hiding inside honesty, the desire to wound while pretending to clarify, the fantasy that one perfect paragraph will finally force another person to recognize your value. Once you can hear those motives, your language begins to clean itself. You do not become mute. You become accurate. And accuracy is one of the most underrated forms of strength. Marcus Aurelius spent a great deal of energy reminding himself that reputation is external. That should hit harder now than ever. Many people are not really trying to live well. They are trying to appear incontestable. They want a life with no embarrassing ambiguity, no awkward silence, no temporary misreading, no period of being underestimated. But a serious man can survive being underestimated. He can survive not being immediately recognized. He can survive the quiet stage where no one claps yet. Why? Because his center of gravity is not in the audience. That is the real secret underneath speaking less. It is not a communication trick. It is not branding. It is not masculine theater. It is the outward sign of a man who has relocated his stability inward. He is less noisy because he is less dependent on agreement, less dependent on instant understanding, less dependent on appearing impressive. That makes him calmer. It also makes him more dangerous in the best sense of the word. Not dangerous because he is aggressive, dangerous because he cannot be easily baited, bought, flattered, or emotionally hijacked. And that kind of man earns respect almost by accident. Not from everyone. Some people only respect spectacle. Some only notice force, charisma, or social proof. Let them. Stoicism was never about winning every crowd. It was about becoming trustworthy in your own command. That is a much higher standard. So if you want to practice this, start small and start honestly. In your next conversation, notice how often you speak to regulate discomfort rather than to convey truth. Notice how quickly you explain yourself when no explanation was asked for. Notice how often you interrupt silence because it makes you feel exposed. Notice the messages you almost send. Notice the argument you rehearse in your head before anything has even happened. Notice how much of your language is strategy. Then begin reducing what is unnecessary. Keep the truth, remove the performance. Keep the boundary, remove the speech that tries to decorate it. Keep the clarity, remove the emotional smoke around it. Keep the standard, remove the need to advertise it. Say less, but mean more. This is not about becoming distant. It is about becoming harder to cheapen. Because every time you speak from compulsion, you spend a little authority. Every time you react just because you were provoked, you hand someone else the steering wheel. Every time you pour out unfinished emotion as if expression were wisdom, you weaken your own center. But every time you pause, examine, and then speak from deliberate ground, something else is built. Composure, precision, gravity, and eventually, a reputation you do not have to manage. The unshakable man is respected not because he is silent, but because nothing about him feels desperate. His words are not trying to rescue him. His reactions are not begging to be justified. His presence is not asking the room for permission to exist. He has learned the ancient discipline of not turning every internal movement into public language. That is rare now, which is exactly why it still commands respect. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to exhaustion, to answer every provocation, to speak just to prove that you matter, stop for a moment. Ask whether your words are carrying truth or merely carrying agitation. Ask whether you are about to communicate or merely discharge tension. Ask whether this moment needs your voice or your steadiness. Because one of the clearest signs of a man coming into his strength is this: he no longer speaks to convince himself that he has it. If this spoke to something real in you, leave a comment with one situation where you know speaking less would change your life. Like the video, subscribe for more serious reflections on Stoicism, discipline, and self-mastery, and return to this principle often. Guard your speech, and you will slowly guard your mind. Guard your mind, and the world will find fewer places to shake you.